I do a lot of videos about my days in the arcade and how it taught me good sportsmanship, and I realize I talk a lot about the rules or laws of the arcade, but I've never actually discussed those laws. And yeah, there was like a laminated piece of paper on the wall. These were rules you had to follow. So just in case you want to use this as a guideline, here are the laws of my old arcade when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. Number 1, physical violence is never tolerated. In fact, having physical contact with someone without their consent in any way is not tolerated. The only time physical violence is tolerated is when it's done as an act to keep the space safe, i.e. kicking someone out of the arcade. If you got physically violent with someone, that was a lifetime ban. Number 2, if you do something that is medically unsafe, you won't get lifetime banned, but it's still not great and you'll be asked to leave. This included everything from just tossing cigarette butts onto the floor of the arcade to not showering. We used a sort of repeat offender rule for that. If you broke the rule multiple times, then you might eventually get banned, but if you only broke it once or twice, we'd be like, hey man, stop that. And yes, certain kids were asked to go home for not having showered and just being too unpleasant to be around. Number 3, trash talk by default is okay, but you have to keep it in the game. That means that if you're going to insult someone, you can only insult things like their gameplay, their skill, stuff that happened in a match. If you took it outside the game and insulted stuff like their race or their gender or their sexuality or whatever, that's a lifetime ban. Now, we gave you a chance to walk it back. You could walk it back and say, sorry, I got heated in the moment. But if you kept doing it, lifetime ban. And if you didn't apologize, also lifetime ban. And this was a sort of corollary to that rule. If someone asks you nicely to stop trash talking even about stuff inside the game, it's not against the rules to say no and keep trash talking anyway, but if you do that, everyone's going to look at you like a dick. Because we all have those days where we're kind of hard on ourselves and we're like, oh man, I just can't take the trash talk today. And you were expected to be a generally nice person. Yes, even during tournament. So again, that's not a bannable offense, but if you did that, no one was going to like you, and you probably weren't going to get matches in, and you probably weren't going to get let into another tournament. The next rule was respect the quarter line. Make sure that you didn't skip your turn in line to play a game. And again, there is a sort of corollary that if you were running a game for a really long time, it was generally expected for you to step down. This might seem shitty because you spent a quarter and you hadn't lost, but the way that we dealt with that was we used to reserve our space for the game by putting quarters on the cab, and if you were going to step down, you just took the quarter of the next kid and let him step up. Oh man, I'm out of time. Well, anyway, those are just some of the rules of my home arcade.